Hello there, welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing remarkably well. I'm doing great, thank you very much. So I'm so glad you've joined me this evening. Unfortunately, my dogs, I have to let them out of my recording studio because if I leave them in here, they're going to make quite a noise, and sometimes they squeak a lot. I've got two min pins who just love hanging around me all the time. They're the most affectionate dogs. I've always loved this breed. I'm passionate about them because they're just so, well, they're just such affectionate creatures. So if you've got a lovely dog who's very mischievous, maybe he ate up your sofa at one time, let us know about it because I love hearing your stories. So before we get started with part 2 of our story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell and the thumbs up, and let's continue with our story. As I drove away, I turned on the radio, and ironically the subject being discussed was fraud. "I don't know what is happening with our world," came an elderly woman's syrupy voice. "In my day, crime was not like it is today. The world has gone completely stark raving mad." "So what is your story, ma'am, that you say has upset you so much?" came the radio host's voice. "Well, I hasten to say, it didn't happen very far from where I live in downtown Seattle, which is very disconcerting. A pregnant woman came up to me. She was holding her belly and telling me she desperately needed my help. It happened when I was exiting the supermarket. She assured me that her tank had run out of petrol. Could I please give her some money to get some gas? She needed to get home. She was feeling poorly. Naturally, I felt very sorry for the poor woman. She insisted on taking down my details, but I gave her $20 and thought nothing of it. I believe in helping people when they're in trouble. It's the right thing to do, is it not? Well, when I was leaving the car lot, I suddenly remembered I'd forgotten to buy strawberries for the pavlova I was making in the evening for my dinner guests I'd invited. So I walked straight back to the supermarket from when I'd seen the lady moments before, and there she was again, accosting another couple with the very same fictitious story she'd given me moments before. When she saw me, she quickly ran away, so the couple was spared from her scam. I couldn't believe it. My bet is she wasn't even pregnant. It bothers me greatly when people do this. I mean, what happens next time when a genuinely distressed person asks me for help? Am I going to doubt them? Do I refuse them in case it's a hoax? "Well, I think we need to give people the benefit of the doubt, don't you?" said the radio host. "Maybe we will get scammed from time to time, but at least we can walk away with a clear conscience, knowing we did our bit to help." I was amazed how the phone lines were chock-a-block full of people claiming they'd fallen victim to the very same scam with the pregnant woman. I shook my head, feeling a sense of revulsion that people could actually behave like that. I wanted to listen to something a little less depressing after my heavyweight, insufferable evening that had dragged on for so long. I changed the radio station to listen to some uplifting music so that my flagging spirits might finally just lift. I was driving down a long country road I was very familiar with, but at night I dreaded driving down this road. Ostensibly, if I was a stranger to this part of the world, it would have been more than a little intimidating for me. Luckily, I knew the road well, but I hated driving at night. It was the darkness that bothered me the most, as it swallowed up all the light, and on country roads devoid of street lights without traffic around, you rarely felt isolated and vulnerable, as if you were in the middle of nowhere, and it was more than a little daunting. On this particular evening the road seemed to go on forever, like a long, dark, endless tunnel, made all the more worse by the trees that fringed its every side, their tenacious branches weaving into each other to form a large, locked but arched canopy above my head. During the day it's beguilingly beautiful, but at night it's quite awful. This tangled arrangement of trees meant that all the moonlight was cruelly expunged, so the road was very uncongenial, as if it was heartlessly closing in on me from every side, with a suffocating oppressiveness comparable to being a butterfly stuffed in a cocoon, desperate to weave your way out of your restrictive confinement. I was a careful driver at the best of times, never inclined to take any ill-advised risks. Even though I wanted to get the hell off this road, I naturally proceeded with caution. All of a sudden, in the intensive glare of my headlights, I saw a strange man standing in the middle of the road, waving me down, with a desperate look on his face. At first I was overcome with a reluctant reservation, and that was when I realized there was another figure lying curled up in the road, which I realized was a woman. I observed her skirt and 2 pairs of her shoes that had come off her feet. I noticed her dangling legs were lying in odd angles, and that did not look good. I understood at once that this man was in grievous trouble. He possibly needed my help. I stopped my car at once. I was eager to be of assistance. I was certain something quite dreadful had happened to the woman. She appeared not to be moving an inch. I had a strange inkling that she might be dead. Was she the victim of a hit and run, I wondered? Did the poor bemused, disorientated man want me to call an ambulance for him? Is that why he'd been waving me down so urgently? Perhaps his cell phone had lost its signal. He wore a helpless expression on his face. I unhesitantly climbed out of my car, foolishly leaving my keys in the ignition. I undid my safety belt and hurried towards the man, who was pointing directly at the woman in the middle of the road. "Is everything all right? Are you all right?" I asked, rushing over towards the woman. "You check her for me. I think she's dying. I can't look. It's my wife." I hurried over to the woman, bending over her to see if she was all right. "Are you all right? Are you all right?" I said. It was so dark, it was difficult to see things very clearly, but I did a double take when I realized that the woman in the road was a heap of tied-up plastic bags, stuffed up in a woman's dress and sculpted to look like a body. That was when I heard the sound of my car engine starting up, roaring, and the man driving away, speeding past my startled person. I could hardly believe what had just happened. I realized in abject horror he'd stolen my car, and now I was all alone on this sequestered country road, without even a cell phone at my disposal, as the man had driven off with my purse and all of its contents. I cannot describe to you the dreadful feeling of being forsaken on a long, dark, barren road, where the dingy moonlight had been obliterated so unkindly by the branches of the trees. It was even challenging to see my hands before my own face. I wanted to cry. I could feel moisture gathering up in the back of my eyes, but I fought the self-pity, telling myself that I could overcome anything, that I was stronger than my tears. But try as I might to restrain myself from crying, tears streamed down my cheeks unwillingly. I had been acquainted with the feeling of a friendless loneliness in my life before, tasted its bitter, unenviable pill, but I had never felt more forlorn, lonesome, and dejected than I did right now. I scrambled awkwardly to the side of the road, in case any car should go steamrolling by, but at this time of night, chance would be a fine thing. I probably looked like an inebriated drunk, oscillating my arms around the place, trying to find my way through the gloomy veil of darkness that hemmed me in from every side. I could hear the happy trills of crickets and frogs, the distant howl of an animal that sounded suspiciously like a coyote. I picked up a fallen branch from the side of the road, the size of a baseball bat, that I perceived I could use as a makeshift weapon against what I couldn't be sure. But the action certainly steadied my nerves, offering me a small measure of comfort. Even the act of holding the branch seemed to ground my dishevelled emotions that were flying all over the place in an agitated, frenzied blur of disorientated confusion. My focus was to get off this long road, but I may as well have been playing a game of blind man's buff, because it was so dingy, so dark, I could barely see a damn thing. Then something outlandishly bizarre happened. Several feet ahead of me, I saw 3 sets of glowing yellow eyes that were approximately 7 feet off the ground. I was convinced they were staring at me. If I had seen 1 pair of yellow eyes, I might have concluded they belonged to an owl, possibly perching on a tree branch, but 3 pairs of eyes meant that these creatures staring at me were not owls. But what were they? I stood perfectly still for a moment, hardly daring to breathe or move a muscle, as an agonizing fear gripped me so tightly I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I clutched my chest tightly, wondering if I was actually going to pass out. I have never before felt such a paralyzing fear. I felt like a cornered animal that was ensnared in a trap and had absolutely no way of escape. I stood there very still. I continued to hold my breath, hoping I hadn't been seen. But who was I kidding? I was deceiving myself. I absolutely knew I had been observed. And that was when the owners of the 3 pairs of eyes began to talk in earnest among themselves, in muted tones. I could hear them speaking to each other, backwards and forwards. It was a strange language that I'd never heard before.
Itila, akita ko na patikata sa kanakwa. Hontala kataki sunoko. Abida, ila fila, hisakala tuani, o mokuluno shila, itita katatakwa, hotsok tatapakali na talo.
I knew they were discussing me, and it would seem they were almost arguing with each other. The owners of 2 pairs of those yellow eyes vanished, disappearing into the veil of darkness like ghostly ethereal shadows, and they were gone. But one yellow pair of eyes remained fixed directly on me, and the owner of those eyes, I regret to say, galloped towards me at the speed of a cantering horse, and emerged through the tenebrific blanket of darkness that swaddled me from every side. That was when I observed a gargantuan-sized ambiguous shape that stopped at about 2 feet away from me, with its blazing yellow eyes zooming in on me like a magnifying lens. I couldn't bear to look at the creature. Now I was terrified. My heart thundered violently in my chest at an alarming rate. My fist curled up as the palms of my hands became clammy and moist, while a numbness consumed me. I still could not run. I wanted to with all my heart, but I just couldn't. And anyway, what would be the point? I couldn't even see my hands before my face. I was a sitting duck for this predator, an easy meal. I closed my eyes tightly, afraid of what I would see. If the creature got any closer, I could feel the vapour of its breath on me that smelt rather like basil. I was waiting for jaws to grab me around my throat, to throttle me, but nothing like that happened at all. I could smell the strong fragrance of pine needles, and I opened my eyes slowly. I was still in one piece. I hadn't been attacked. I couldn't see the creature standing close to me very clearly, but I suddenly knew I was looking at a Bigfoot, and I knew at once she was female. How I knew this I'm not even really sure, but I just did. She lowered her body to the ground, patting her shoulders. I was hesitant for a moment. The Bigfoot wanted me to trust her. She was going to lead me away from the black tunnel of trees into the light. I was pondering whether I could actually put my faith in such an idiosyncratic creature when she spoke to me in her strange language, which was immediately translated rather absurdly into my head in English. I was dumbfounded by this. It was like hearing the voice of God booming into my head, loud and crystal clear. Only this voice was distinctly feminine. Tilakita kushaka sakwanili amasifolosho. Do you want help or not? I can get you off this road into the moonlight. I didn't hesitate to climb onto the Bigfoot's shoulders, and she held both of my legs down with her large hands. The relief I felt being on her shoulders was monumental. I suddenly knew I was safe. I could feel the comforting rise and fall of her chest as she breathed, and smell the sweet smell of pine needles on her long, flowing dark hair. She moved so gracefully down the long road until we were greeted by the soft, magnanimous light of the moon. But she still galloped with me on her shoulders to take me somewhere safe. I felt completely comfortable being carried by her on her powerful body. In truth, I have never enjoyed a ride so much. I have ridden horses before, and even an elephant in Thailand once, but riding a Bigfoot was as if I was floating on air. Finally we got to the road where there was a small collection of trees on one side that fringed a large meadow, where a few cows were happily grazing. I could see a few pairs of keen inquiring eyes glancing up at us and trotting over inquisitively to the wooden fence to have a good old gawk. The moonlight was so generous. Her silvery beams spanked the velvety blackness with an audacious determination to subdue its insufferable stranglehold over the night, which meant that I could see the Bigfoot distinctly, probably as plainly as the now large gathering of curious cows. You might be surprised to hear me describe the Bigfoot as beautiful, but she absolutely was. Her feminine face was rarely sculptural, with high cheekbones and a pronounced forehead, but it was her soulful, dark, treacle-coloured eyes, filled with such tender kindness, that warmed the cockles of my heart. Those incredible eyes showed me that there really is good in the world, that will always trump the evil.
Kila tila kola pasha.
You'll be safe here, she told me.
Tila fana sukolosha.
I'll keep watch here. I'll be watching you behind those trees to make sure you're safe.
Tila tila fonopoto.
I brought you here because some cars come down this road at night. You'll be able to get help.
Tila fila kotampoto alanshi.
Thank you, I said. Thank you. She patted me on the back as if to say, it's a pleasure, and pointed to the tree from where she'd watch me.
Tila fo akasa.
I'll be over there, she told me again. The cows eventually grew bored. They meandered away. Many of them moved into the night, which was oddly reassuring. It even made me smile. I no longer felt frightened, knowing that the female Bigfoot was watching over me. And then a truck would likely soon come down the road. And when it did, I was waving my arms frantically above my head. And it stopped. I could feel relief wash over me as a young handsome man rolled down his window and said, "Are you all right? Do you need a lift somewhere?" I ran over to the passenger side door, which he opened for me, and gratefully I sank into the seat next to his. "I've been carjacked," I told him. "I would really appreciate a lift." "My name is Adam," he said, giving me a warm smile. "And you are?" "Cassandra," I said. Adam's account. It had been an agonizingly long night that I thought would never end. My brother's girlfriend, Rebecca, had tried in vain to set me up with her best friend, Simone, and it had been a precariously long, rather fragile evening. I had about as much in common with the thorny woman as the bristly porcupine has with the household tabby. She was the porcupine, of course. I was the household tabby in this scenario. I'd never met a more provocative, yet prickly woman in my entire life. You almost had to watch your P's and Q's around her, because she seemed to have no sense of humour. I find humorless people very taxing at the best of times. Even though some might say her kittenish behaviour was quirky and fun, I would strongly disagree. I had no desire to attend this dinner party that my brother was hosting at his apartment, where his girlfriend Rebecca was doing the cooking, and she was one hell of a lousy cook. Her potatoes were as hard as golf balls, and her meat as tough as shoe leather. But the most undigestible part of the evening was the unpalatable company I was forced to endure. I had only agreed to come to dinner this evening in order to appease Rebecca, who had worn me down by insisting I meet her friend. "My girlfriend Simone is perfect for you, Adam," she told me. "The two of you will hit it off. I know you will. And she's easy on the eye." In truth, I'd given up finding the perfect woman for myself. I'd been through a plethora of the lousiest dates, with disastrous consequences. I wondered if I was being too picky. My mother was always accusing me of having exacting standards. I didn't think I was being difficult. I was an easy-going guy, and looking for a woman with a sense of fun, who didn't take herself too seriously, seemed too much to ask for. I even employed the services of a dating agency once, and they picked women for me that were the antithesis of what I was looking for, as they assumed I would like a woman exactly like myself. Did they really think I wanted to wake up in the morning to a woman that mirrored me? I wanted a woman who was refreshingly different, who had a lot in common with me, but didn't look exactly the same as me or behave like I did. I had decided to give up looking at all. I just had enough of dating, and I never ever wanted to travel down that soul-destroying road again. Nor did I want well-meaning people to set me up on dates. I was so frustrated when my brother and his girlfriend made some sort of lame excuse about picking up some dessert wine that they had forgotten, so that they could leave me alone with this ghastly woman. I wanted to scream out,
Please, please don't leave me. For God's sake, don't leave.
But they willfully abandoned me. My brother's girlfriend had naively assumed that me and Simone had rarely clicked, when nothing could be further from the truth. I wanted to run the hell away from that dinner party, but it was politeness that tethered me very reluctantly to my chair.
I think we've been set up,
I said to Simone. It looks like it, she said, taking a large gulp of her wine and reaching out to stroke my face. But I don't mind, do you? It's quite cosy with them not being around, don't you think? She said playfully. I tried not to squirm, but I didn't want this woman to touch me. But thankfully she pulled away and coquettishly played with the stem of her wineglass, looking at me with playful, teasing doe eyes. So tell me, Adam, what do you do for a living? She purred. I loathed it when women asked me this question. It was as if they were mentally calculating how much I was worth, and that bugged the hell out of me. I don't care a toss what you earn. Some of the richest men in the world are far from impressive.
Oh, this and that, I said vaguely. I have my hands in a few pies, you could say.
She giggled. That sounds very intriguing, Adam. Do you care to be more elaborate about that? Perhaps a little bit more descriptive?
Not really, I said evasively. How about you? I might as well turn the tables on you. What do you do for a living?
She flicked her platinum blonde hair backwards in a flirtatious gesture and arched her back. Well, what do you think I do for a living, Adam? I bet you'll never be able to guess. I'm a very unpredictable woman, she said, giving me a big wink. I did not know how to answer. Did she want me to say she was a fashion model, I wondered? I could tell I was treading on spiky ground. If I said the wrong thing, I might just ruffle her feathers. And this woman had an inflated opinion of herself, that was for sure.
A receptionist, I said coyly.
Oh, my word! I can't believe you said that, she said, looking at me, as if I told her she cleaned out toilets for a living. Goodness gracious! I'm so insulted. Do I look like a receptionist? Do I look like a woman that takes orders from a boss?
I'm sorry. You've got me there. I have no idea what you do. It was just a random guess.
I'm an entrepreneur, she said proudly. I run my own cleaning company, I'll have you know. I certainly could never work for someone else. I'm far too independent and industrious for that. I like being my own boss, calling all the shots. I enjoy the sacking and the hiring. It's so much better to be in charge.
Well, that is impressive. Running your own business, I mean.
Well, I don't mean to boast, but I'm doing remarkably well, I have to say, she said, giving me a gleeful smile. I've been married twice before, she told me. In truth, I don't think my husbands could handle my success. I have a sneaky suspicion they were rather intimidated by me. I don't think some men can handle successful women like me, you see.
I don't think that is necessarily true at all. Many women assume the worst about men. But I assure you, men, I think, are always eager to encourage people to be of their best. I don't think they would begrudge your success. I know I certainly would not.
Well, then you clearly did not know my husbands, said Simone. But then you aren't anything like them, which is a very big compliment, of course. You're very, well, what's the word, interesting, Adam.
It's kind of you to say that, Simone. But I am very ordinary, I assure you.
Oh, but I don't think ordinary describes you at all, Adam. You look like a great big surprise present, full of mystery and intrigue, that one just simply can't wait to open to find out what's inside it.
I'm sure you would be very disappointed, Simone.
I don't think so, somehow. I was inwardly begging for the night to end, and when it did, I couldn't wait to return to my car.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm running very late, I told Rebecca. I must go. It's good to meet you, Simone. All the very best.
I ran out of the house as fast as a charging cheetah. My brother's girlfriend, Rebecca, ran after me, handing me a note. It was from Simone. It had her cell phone number on it and said, "Call me. You know you want to," followed by a happy face. I thought I was going to be sick. "She's quite taken by you," said Rebecca, as she kissed me goodbye on the cheeks. "You must give her a call, Adam. She really likes you." I grumbled something inaudible under my breath and climbed into my car, sinking gratefully into the comfortable leather seats and pressing down my accelerator with the zealous enthusiasm of a wild bison thundering across the open plains, while a seemingly bemused Rebecca stood on the edge of the road, waving at me. I'd been driving for quite a long while, when suddenly a young woman stood on the corner of the road, waving me down, so I stopped my car, rolling down the window. "Need any help?" I asked her. I was to find the young woman was called Cassandra. She was beautiful, funny, and so refreshing. She was, put simply, quite a contrast from the prickly Simone. I was appalled to hear that Cassandra had been carjacked. She told me how she'd been waved down by a man, pretending to be in trouble, and how the body of the woman in a road was nothing but a coiled-up beige bin bag, stuffed in a woman's clothes, sculptured to look like legs and feet. "That's quite the scam he pulled on you," I said to her. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. Would you like to go to the police station to file a report? It would be a good idea. I can take you there." "No, that's not necessary. I'm sorry, but I just couldn't face doing that right now. I don't want to see the police. I'll report the incident in the morning. You don't even want to know about the day I've had." She proceeded to tell me about her appalling date, and then I told her about mine, and my track was filled with so much laughter. I realized in an instant that I had found my girl. I think we both felt the spark between us. When I dropped her off at her apartment, situated on the edge of her parents' property, she begged me not to leave, so we talked for hours about everything and nothing, over hot cups of coffee, and I felt like I'd known Cassandra all my life. "I know it's an awful thing to say," I said. "What is it?" she asked, raising a brow. "I'm glad you were carjacked. Otherwise I may not have met you. I think our meeting was serendipitous." "My mother would completely agree with you. She believes that you meet the right person when it's meant to be, like when she met my father in a car parking lot. My mother is the perennial romantic, believing there is a divine plan in the universe for everything and everyone." "Sounds to me like your mother might be right. I'd never have believed I'd meet a lovely girl like you on the edge of a remote country road." "Like roadkill," she teased. "Well, I think we can safely say you're a whole lot better than roadkill. You're alive for a start, and that helps. And you're far more attractive than a pair of dead eyes." "Thanks a lot," she said demurely. "I'm not sure if that's meant to be a compliment or not." It was decided that night that I would sleep on Cassandra's sofa, even though she very kindly offered me her bed, but I was a gentleman. It was 2 o'clock in the morning, and she'd need a lift to the funeral parlour the next day. "I'd be so grateful if you'd give me a lift," she said. "You see, my employers, Mr. and Mrs. Savage, have been suffering from very bad food poisoning. I doubt they'll be better in the morning. She'll expect me to man the fort the entire day, so I really need a lift. I could, of course, call an Uber." "Don't be ridiculous. It'll be my great pleasure to take you myself. It's not far out of my way. But what about the police? Don't you think you should file a report in the morning? And then there is the matter of the insurance for your car." "I will weather that storm when I get to work. I can't be late at the funeral home. Maybe I'll file a police report at the end of the day. That might be a good idea." The moment I fell back on Cassandra's sofa, I was out like a light. I woke up the following morning to the strong smell of coffee brewing. I rubbed my eyes, wondering where the hell I was. And then my memory came flooding back. Cassandra handed me a cup of coffee. It was just what I needed to iron the sluggish feelings away. "I made the coffee strong," she said. "We were up late last night, talking to the early hours of the morning. We're going to need this caffeine just to get through the day, I think." Before long we were driving down the road. and that was when Cassandra told me to stop. "That's my car, over there! I'm sure it's my car! I recognise the bumper sticker!" I had driven past the parked car. I saw a man sitting there on the front seat. He had a thick mop of grey hair and piercing eyes. If Cassandra's car had been carjacked, the thief would have long gone. I thought Cassandra must be mistaken. I had seen the driver there very clearly, sitting in his car. "Please go back," said Cassandra insistently. "That is my car. I know it is. I just know it is. Let me at least go back to check." "Very well, but don't be disappointed if it is somebody else's car, because I'm sure you know that the carjacker would have long gone." I reversed my car and accompanied Cassandra to examine the white Hyundai on the side of the road, and to my amazement, no one was sitting in the driver's seat, but someone had been there moments before. Where could they have got to? They couldn't have just vanished into thin air. Cassandra opened the door. It wasn't even locked, and she joyfully cried out, "It's my car! I told you it was my car! But why has the carjacker abandoned it? My purse is there on the floor, and there's still petrol in the tank. How very strange!" "I don't understand what's going on here, Cassandra. I promise you, I saw someone sitting in the driver's seat, a distinguished-looking man, grey hair and piercing eyes." "Oh, my God," said Cassandra. "I think I know who you saw, and I think I know why the man who carjacked my car probably abandoned it. I think he saw a ghost and freaked out. I think he saw the ghost of Matt Granger. Maybe Matt Granger realised that this man was stealing my car and scared him away, which was why the man abandoned it. That would explain a whole lot, because when have you ever heard of a carjacker abandoning a car?" "What on earth are you talking about, Cassandra? You're not making any sense." "Follow me back to the funeral parlour. You'll understand what I'm talking about. I'm going to show you a picture of Matt Granger, and you can tell me if this is the man that you saw seated in the driving seat of my car." When Cassandra showed me the picture of Matt Granger, she asked me if that was the man I had seen. "That's definitely him. He's a very distinguished-looking man," I said, feeling somewhat bemused, "and I don't forget a face easily." "Well, he's dead," said Cassandra. "I saw his ghost yesterday, and you saw him in the front seat of my car this morning. I'm arranging his funeral with his wife and all the burial arrangements. He was tragically killed in a car accident. His wife says he's got a great sense of humour." "Is this some kind of macabre, very inappropriate joke?" I said, feeling absolutely certain that Cassandra was having a laugh at my expense. "Come with me. Follow me down the corridor into the cold room where the bodies are stored." "Is that necessary?" I asked, my blood running cold. But I followed Cassandra anyway, and she pulled out a long shelf. A body was lying on a gurney, in cold storage. Cassandra pulled back the sheet to expose the man's face. I did a double take. There was no doubt that this was the man I'd seen, seated in the front seat of the car. I could hardly believe it. "Oh, my God! That's him," I said, looking at Cassandra aghast. I kid you not, the most extraordinary thing happened next. We heard a man's laughter. "Did you hear that?" Cassandra asked me. "I sure did." We looked everywhere to see if anyone was playing a trick on us, but no one was around. Everything was deadly quiet. "I think that was Matt Granger, who was laughing. I'm sure it was. I think he was very amused by what happened. And if you think about it, it is actually quite funny." "My word," I said, "I think I've really learnt something today. I've had my eyes opened. Until now, I never did believe in the supernatural." I kissed Cassandra on the cheek, and we decided we would meet in the evening for dinner. "I'm so glad I've got my car back," she told me. "I don't have to go to the police now, do I?" As I casually strolled back to my car, with a skip in my step, a man with silvery hair, who seemed oddly familiar, passed me on my way to the parking bay. His smile met mine, and then I realised who he was. I was looking directly into the eyes of Matt Granger. He had walked past me. "Hold on a moment, sir," I said, turning around, but no one was there. Back to Cassandra. as I told you from the very beginning, that sometimes there is a day above every other day, that stands out as serendipitously special. That was the day I witnessed the ghost of Matt Granger and encountered an extraordinary Bigfoot who delivered me from the tenebrific horror of a sequestered country road, devoid of any light. And if that wasn't enough, I met the love of my life on that night. So let's just say that was one hell of a day. A bumpy roller coaster ride of ups and downs, twists and turns, but one with a very positive outcome. It would turn out over the next couple of days there were several sightings around the funeral parlour of Matt Granger, as Mrs. Savage, who returned to work a day later, asked me who the handsome man with the grey hair was that I was talking to. I assured her that no one had been talking to me, but when she saw the funeral programme for Matt Granger, her face turned white. She said, "That's the man I saw talking to you." I personally believe that Matt Granger hung around the place for the funeral. He crossed over to the other side after the funeral, which was why there were so many sightings of him beforehand. "It's funny," Mrs. Granger told me, "but sometimes I feel he's right here with me." And I knew when she said that Matt had been hanging around her too. But after his funeral, I hasten to say, we never ever saw him again. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.